Welcome back. The room's gotten, I don't know if the room's gotten prettier, but they've gotten two Boilermaker basketball legends with us. Of course, Jerry Nichols, and we're talking 1974 NIT championship team, which will be honored tomorrow in Mackey Arena. And these guys are going to tear up the town, I think, when they're in town tonight. But Jerry Nichols joins us. And of course, a starting guard, starting swing guy forward on that from Greenwood, Indiana, basketball on that basketball team that won the NIT. Mike Steele from Robinson, Illinois, number 41, and a key reserve, especially down the stretch in the '74 season. Ended up being a starter later in his career as well. Of course, it was also a coach at East Carolina, at DePaul, at Butler as an assistant. Any place else you coached?
That's it.
You GA at Purdue also for a little bit. Did you do a year there?
I was a GA at Bowling Green.
Bowling Green. Okay, there you go. So anyway, we are now that we got the introductions in to my favorite people just to talk some basketball. And if I'd have recorded the 15 minutes we talked before that, we'd really have a good show because there's a lot of good stuff going on. Jerry, I'm going to start with you. Just to talk, obviously the '74. We all lament, or I guess maybe we were lament, or we're excited we all made it 50 years past that great moment in Purdue basketball history. Of course, the '74 team winning the NIT championship and finishing strong like it did. A great moment for you as a player, but also a difficult one. I mean, obviously you had an injury in the quarterfinals against Hawaii, but now you look back at that at 50 years later, and that what it put it in encapsulate kind of what it means now, and what that experience was like for you.
Well, of course, that's probably one of the most memorable things that that happened during my career at Purdue. 71 through 75. Like I've spoken many times before, we had a team that was just very, very close. Team chemistry was awesome. All of us knew our roles, and we knew what we had to do to win. And we had scorers, we had defenders, we had rebounders, things of that sort. And we had guys not only in the starting five, but we had the rest of the team that when they got the chance to come in and take over, they did their job too. And that's why we were so successful. But that NIT, like you said, that championship was, like you said, bittersweet for me. I did blow out my knee against Hawaii and had to watch the rest of the tournament from my hospital bed back in Lafayette. But, leading up to that, I was playing some of my best basketball against North Carolina in the first game. I had probably my best game of my career with 22 points and I don't know, 8 or 9 rebounds against Bobby Jones.
Bobby Jones, yeah.
Yeah, and I defended him, and that was quite a challenge too. But we played very well. We got down the first half, but we came back and we did our thing in the second half, and I think we ended up beating them by 11 or 12. Mm-hmm. So they had some pretty good future NBA players on that team. Not only Bobby, but Darrell Elston and Walter Davis, Mitch Kupchak, and all those guys. So we were playing a big time team, and it's been established that back then the NIT was really as good or better than the NCAA tournament was, because we had more top 10, top 15 teams in our tournament than the NCAA tournament did, due to the fact that the NCAA automatically invited all of the conference championships, conference teams that won championships, so in lesser conferences. So anyway, I mean, I don't really remember much about when the team came back to the arena because I was pretty well morphined up. But they came to the hospital and they got me and wheeled me in Mackey Arena during the celebration, and I just broke down because that was the epitome of one of the best things that ever happened to me, being able to celebrate with my teammates that did such a great job. Man, I was proud of them. For hanging in there and basically winning one for the stick man. So,
and I think there have been emotional moments in Mackey Arena history. Joe Barry Carroll giving roses to his mom, and I remember in 1980 when I was in school. But that was an unbelievable moment. You had 10,000 people, and you guys were late. Steele, I don't know what you guys were doing on the way, but I remember Bob DeMoss, the former football coach, kind of prompting the crowd. We kept waiting for you guys to show up because I was there.
Probably partying.
Yeah, and then when you came out was really an emotional moment in the history of the building because people knew what you meant to that team and the difficulty. And knee injuries were different in 1974 than they are in 2024 by a long shot.
Very much.
And without question. Mike, you obviously were a key role player in that team, but your role, I may be incorrect, but my memory serves, did increase even more after Jerry's injury. But also, you certainly played a role playing with and behind Bruce Parkinson and getting the job done. And you had a very good time. I don't know how good a time you had in New York. You had a good time on the Madison Square Garden court, playing very well for that team yourself. And we talked about Gerald Thomas, who's been battling some health issues, coming in and doing the job. Bruce Rose, obviously getting the starting job when Jerry's out. Talk about the role players on that team, and you were one of them, but you also had some pretty good talent on the front end of that basketball team too.
No, when Stick got hurt, initially I don't think any of us knew how. We didn't know how bad he was hurt, and like he said, we were close. And when he went, I can remember, guys, the good thing was that Bruce Rose and Stick were both so good.
Yeah.
And they tried to play him together, but you had Frank, in there too. And so fortunately, we had someone like Bruce Rose that could come in and play 10 more minutes than he was playing. And he couldn't guard like Stick, but he was an enforcer, and he was really a good player. And so we missed Stick, but I think if we would have, it would have been harder to replace anybody, but Bruce Rose was playing at a different level too. The two of them together were really, really good. I mean, really good. So, but I think that when I look back on it, I don't think, when we played, like, it wasn't like we went in and said, okay, are we going to be able to compete with Indiana? Are we going to we just went and played. I mean, when NC State came in, we had them on the ropes. Carolina was a top 5 team, but we just played, and I think that was one of the things too, that we played pickup games in the summer. We just wanted to play, and I think that that's similar when I watch Smith and I watch these guys playing now. I think they're ballers. I think if they were playing DePaul and Division III and weren't getting any money, NAIML money and all that stuff, I think they'd be playing every day because they love playing basketball.
Yeah, that's an important one of the storylines of the, and of course, Jerry, you kind of outlined that only one team from the Big Ten made the NCAA tournament. Of course, it ended up being an Indiana-Michigan playoff, and there's a long story with that. Michigan beats Indiana, goes to the NCAA tournament. Indiana goes to the Commissioner's tournament, and Purdue goes to the NIT. And my point, though, is that one of the storylines that year, you guys beat an extremely good Providence team out in Hawaii. You beat Michigan at home in an unbelievable comeback, and one of your great moments, another injury moment that people remember. You were getting your nose bloody, Jerry, in that game, but the defensive job you did. But you also had some tough losses. I mean, North Carolina State, which you played 5 days later. You did a great job on David Thompson, still out with fouls and other issues in the last 11 minutes of that, or last part of that game. But you had and they won the national championship, and you had them on the ropes, right, in Mackey Arena. You had Indiana. One of the most bitter losses I can remember was the last game of the year in Bloomington, in a game that very questionable call against Bruce Rose.
Quite a lot of questionable calls.
Yes, and the Hall of Calls got its name then, but. Just talk about just how good that team was. I mean, we talked about, just the league was good, but you guys were just a step away from being not only Big Ten champions and being the NCAA tournament, but also beating some extremely good teams.
Yeah. Well, I think, you mentioned we had some extremely close losses, and that was true. And I think some of those losses were basically came down to one or two possessions. Offensive or defensively, we made some mistakes that we normally wouldn't make, and it put us in a bad position, and it just ended up losing the ball game. We could have very, very well been the league championship if a couple of things, the bounces would have gone our way, a couple, 2 or 3 games during the year. But, those things happen. But we had a very high-powered offense, as you know, Alan. We scored 61 points in the first half against North Carolina State. We had them down 61-46, I believe, down 15 at half. And we just went cold the second half. And they, being the number 1 team in the country, they came back, storming back in the second half. And due to the fact that we couldn't hit a broadside of a barn, they came back and beat us by, I think, 4 or 5. But we were right in the game with them, maybe even played a better game than they did. We just didn't hit our shots. But, all teams go through that kind of stuff. As a witness the other night against Nebraska, the current team, Nebraska was just unreal with their shooting and stuff. And it goes that way. But, yeah, like I said the other day, it was a situation where I think at the time that the NCAA was going on, or not the NCAA, but the NIT championship was going on, I think we were playing as well as anybody in the country, with maybe the exception of UCLA. And I would have loved to have a chance to play those guys, but it didn't work out. So could we have been there? Absolutely. But it didn't work out in our favor for that season.
Mike, one of the guys that you, not the guy that you were kind of the presenter for the Purdue Hall of Fame, Bruce Parkinson. And if you haven't, if you haven't had a chance to, you can certainly go back and go to goldenblack.com. We did a Zoom cast with darn near the entire team. Had a great time with that on Monday as part of our Monday Night Memories. But Mike, talk about Bruce and just the kind of player, he's another one of those guys that doesn't always show up statistically, but he was maybe his best year in all. Of course, he had an injury also later in his year. Maybe his best year at Purdue was his sophomore year in that 74 team. But just tell folks just how good he was. And you guys got to go head to head a lot in practice, I know, but talk about how good Bruce was.
Well, the first time I'd been on campus for a couple hours, and my parents dropped me off, and I went right over to the co-rec, and Park was there, and I meet him. That's the first time I'd ever, I met him, and I kind of prided myself on a couple things. I would usually make the teams up, try to make them fair, but usually my guys had a little bit of advantage, and I would keep score, and so that's another advantage. So I would win more games than I'd lose. Well, I cheated Parkinson. He's from Yorktown. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed. And so
not here to defend himself either, but go ahead.
He's not. It's great. And so he won every game. I mean, I changed the score. I did everything. He won every game. And I went back and I called my dad and I said, Dad, I just played with the best basketball player I've ever seen. And my dad said, well, Mike, at the different level, you're going to see that. I said, Dad, he's the same age. He's a freshman, and he plays the same position I play. And my dad said, "Oh, damn, that's not good." So if they had the portal then, I'm not sure I'd have stayed all night.
Yeah.
One night at Purdue, I'd have been at Evansville or Indiana State or someplace. And that shows you, though, he hung in there, and even though I think Park made me better because I played against him every day in the summer. We played one-on-one. I'd cheat him, trip him, whatever. But I also knew that if I was in the game and I could get him the ball, things were going to happen that were going to be good. I mean, I think that that's one of the things that I tried to do is when in doubt, get it to Bruce. Yeah. And I think maybe one of the reasons he had such a good year is because when I was in the game, I wasn't looking for me as much as I was looking for Park. Yeah. And we had a nice chemistry together. I think in the NIT, we played a lot together. And
yes.
Game, we had some, I had a good feel for what he was going to do, and yeah, we had a good chemistry. But he was a special player, and was as good as any point guard that I have seen play. He was really good.
He's Purdue's all-time assist leader, and Bruce Parkinson was a sophomore from Yorktown, Indiana, on that team. And yes, he was one of those guys. Joe Barry Carroll's got the only triple-double in Purdue history, men's basketball history. But who knows the closest second is Bruce Parkinson. And he had, I think, in his freshman year, I think a 12-9-9 or 12-10-9 deal. And of course, we know assists got in there somewhere, but he was special. All right, we get our chance to have some fun with John Garrett and Frank Kendrick, just because really good players, obviously. John Garrett and Jerry, I'll start with him. John Garrett, of course, the center on that team, 6'11" guy from Peru, Indiana, would have been a junior on that team. That's right, and finished made second team All Big Ten. Frank made first team that year. But really special guy. You guys could, he's a 6'11" guy, Frank. You guys can run a bit. This team was fun to watch, Jerry, because you guys can get up and down the court. But talk about the skill set of both those guys, and then I'll let Mike Steele rebut it, because he will, especially with Frank. But go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I think we both have pretty good same value and views of both of those players. John was a phenomenon, because not only was he 6'11", but the guy could run the floor like a guard. And that was one of the reasons why we were such a fast-paced team, is because we could do that with him in the ball game. And the guy could shoot from anywhere on the court, and as good as anybody we had on the team. His shooting was probably some of the best that I've ever seen in a big man. There's been some good ones, but he was right up there with the rest of them. And he was just a guy that we could get the ball to, and we knew that something good was going to happen. Like Mike said, well, I'll go with Park. And so John was a very good guy to have on our team, because we were based on quickness. Frank and I were very quick. We could jump, things like that. John could run the floor, not jump very well, but he could still rebound. And of course, then we had really quick guards and stuff, maybe with the exception of Steele. But and in regards to Frank was probably, Coach Shaw said one time that he thought Frank was very much like Elgin Baylor in the way he was able to score and stuff one-on-one. And I believe that. I used to watch Elgin Baylor play with the Lakers all the time, and Frank had uncanny individual moves as a one-on-one offensive player. Couldn't guard a fence post. But Frank was a great guy to play with, because we would both get out and run and get things moving. So that was a lot of fun. The thing I enjoyed about Frank, and probably we would both say the same thing, is some of the toughest competition that we had in our years at Purdue were mine and his one-on-one games after practice.
Yeah. Because
we were the same size, we were the same quickness, we could both shoot, we could both go to the hole. It was just, knockdown, drag out, one-on-one games after practice. So, but no, Frank was just a terrific player, and had a really good knack of being able to score.
He didn't lack confidence, which comes in handy as a player.
Right.
Guys, and I'm not being critical of him at all. I think that's a thing where Frank had that special quality. You'd said, Mike, and I think on Mondays, and I've heard you say it before, about John Garrett in today's NBA world would be different than he was. He never. I may have had a cup of coffee in terms of getting a couple chances, but didn't really get much at all of a chance in the league. He played overseas, though, I think. Is that right?
He did.
Yeah. But anyway, talk about John's skill set. And of course, Frank was in the NBA for a cup of coffee and played a long time overseas. Was part of the Golden State Warriors World Championship team. Was at least on that roster for half that season. But talk about those guys in terms of just how your views of how good they were, but also some of their skill sets that made them unique.
Frank had a really good mid-level jump shot. He and Stick can tell you, like, he could go hard to the basket and pull up and shoot an 8, 10, 12 footer.
Yeah.
Right.
He didn't have much range.
Yeah.
Like if they had a 3-point shot, he'd have shot them. I promise you that. But
Yeah, still does in his alumni games, but go ahead.
no, but he didn't have that part of the game. And but John Garrett, if he was playing now, John Garrett could go set those high screens. If you could visualize Edie setting a high screen and then stepping back and shooting threes.
Yeah.
That's what most of John's baskets came outside of 15 feet. And he was a great free throw shooter, but up at the elbow and even further out, we have shooting games after practice and stuff. And you're talking about as the next year with Macy and Seasteen and Eugene and guys that, could all really shoot. John Garrett could shoot just as good or better than any of those guys. And, he had, for a guy 6'11", I'm not sure he could dunk, and I know he couldn't palm a ball.
Really small hands, which is a problem.
No, but he could shoot it. Yeah, he could shoot it. And he was fun. He was fun to be with. He was fun in the locker room. I think that's the other thing that made it really neat is that I can't remember any blow-ups, any real issues we had. I think Frank he and Rosie one night, Frank was mad about something and Rosie stopped that pretty quick. But that was it. That was it. And David Luke and all those guys, we just had a really, really close group, and that really made it so much fun. And as the season goes on, I can't remember some of the games we won or lost, whatever, but I can remember we were always together and we were always, always had everybody's back. And that made it special.
Yeah, David Luke, of course, I guess I don't know if you really he really wasn't a point guard. He was kind of your off guard because Bruce really ran the show, but he also was a big part of that starter and it played a big role in kind of his career crescendoed at the right time because he'd struggled a little bit going into that year and became a very, very important part of that team. From Cincinnati Purcell High School. All right, I do want to ask one more question about the team, then I want to hit you both on this year's team. But Fred Schaus, the head coach, obviously what would have been in his second season as the head coach in the 73-74 season. But Jerry, I'll start with you. Talk about what Fred Schaus was like as a coach and how he seemed to complement kind of the atmosphere, maybe because you guys were kind of good at getting along by yourselves, but talk about the role that Fred played in your group.
Yeah, it was kind of a shock for me after my freshman year to hear that George King had taken the AD job and that we were going to have a new coach. I didn't have the slightest idea or know much about Coach Schaus when he came in. Knew that he'd been with the Lakers for many years as coach and general manager. But that's all I knew about him. I didn't know what kind of game we were going to be playing or anything. The good part about it was that he brought in the pro style quick ball game that we all like to play. And we had the team for it. And I think he realized that with the quickness and the mobility that we had, that was the style of play we needed to play. So he was already there with that type of game from the pros. Defensively, I don't know that we got a whole lot better defensively in the years that he was there, but we were able to outscore a lot of teams, and but no, Coach Schaus was a player's coach. I think you could go to him with any problems or issues that you had and discuss things with him, and he would help you work those out. He would listen to you when you came with ideas and stuff like that, but he was a good guy. He was a really good guy. And I think we all, pretty much all had the same feeling about him in that regard. Fiery guy, very fiery guy. So, you had to compete and you had to do your job or you were going to be in a world of hurts, probably at halftime or after practice and stuff like that. But no, I think he was a good coach for us.
The Stomper. He was
Yes, he was.
He was a personality, even though and like I said, a good one of those. He's a good soul. There was no question about that. But Mike, what you obviously went on and coached. You had people that inspired you in the coaching world, certainly. But talk about what Fred might have had. What not say inspiration, but things that you may have taken from what he did in your coaching career.
It's funny. We talked about the Iowa game, which we lost in triple overtime, but it's one of the moments. It's one of the games that I remember, and I'll tell you why. Like I was a pretty good passer, and so like our last second shots, I would be the guy taking the ball out of bounds. So that was, that's what I did. And so we're down in the second overtime, and we're down 2, and there's like 2 seconds to go. Mm-hmm. And we got a timeout. And he's put Pat Manahan in, and I was supposed to throw it to Pat, and then Pat was going to throw it to Stick. And that was the play. And so as we're coming off the bench, I turned to Coach and I said, we don't have time for 2 passes. It's not going to work. I'm a sophomore. And I said, it's not going to work. And as we're going onto the floor, the place is going crazy. And Coach said, well, then throw the damn ball wherever you want to throw it. There we go. And so Stick goes off the screen. He goes deep, and I fake it to Manahan, and I throw it the length of the floor, and Stick is wide open. And he catches it and makes it. And I'm telling you, I wish I had a video of me sauntering over to the bench. Everybody's going crazy on Stick, and everybody's so pumped. He makes the shot, and I was just kind of like, well, what do we want to do next?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah, I was so cocky. It was so faithful. It would have been perfect if we would have won the game. If we would have won. And when you talk to Sat still thinks he made the shot, and we won the game.
Yeah.
He doesn't remember any of the games except that one. That's it.
You and I know the difference.
Yeah, Dick not here to defend himself, though. We did get him out in the Monday night podcast, but Dick had 17 points, but he did not score the
No.
Yeah, but he did hit 9 out of 10 free throws, so he did do that well.
It was a fluke.
Dick's a good storyteller.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, you think about it. You had me from Robinson, Stick from Greenwood, Park from Yorktown, for crying out loud.
Satterfield from Hagerstown.
A couple boys from Peru.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just if they'd had a video of us the first day we were in New York, it would have been like Opie looking up and like, Pa, look at the buildings.
And
That's exactly right.
And as the story goes, you didn't pack because you weren't sure you're going to beat North Carolina for a long time, and then you did. And then, of course, in those days, the whole tournament was played there, so you got to spend 10 days, 11 days there.
It's at the Essex house, and I mean, Park and I only took one change of clothes because I was going to Myrtle Beach to play golf with the fraternity guys. I knew we weren't going to beat Carolina.
See, that's the thing. You screwed the whole story up because they said, "Oh, they were ready, and they were mad, and they thought they had a chip on their shoulder. They were going to beat North Carolina." No, you guys weren't going to win. You're going to win. I don't know. There's got to be some truth in there somewhere.
Well, on the other end of that, I knew that we were going to beat them.
Yeah, there you go. There you go,
Stick. You know what? I was so excited we were going, and they said we're playing Carolina. I said, well, this will be a short trip.
Jerry, I want to ask you, because both of you guys obviously watching, both of you will be in Mackey Arena tomorrow and be honored and see Purdue take on Penn State at 2:15.
Yep.
But we all watched Tuesday night in Lincoln when the Cornhuskers put on a shooting show. You guys know a lot about basketball and watched a lot of basketball, a lot of Purdue basketball. Not time to hit the panic button by any stretch by Purdue, but 4 out of the top five teams in the AP poll have already been beaten this week. But talk about, I'll start with you, Jerry, put a little bit in perspective on what you see in this team and maybe what they have to do to get better. I mean, you can't be at your best on January the 12th if you're going to win on April the 8th or whatever day it's going to be. So talk about that.
To be honest with you, and I think Mike will agree with me here, this team reminds me a whole lot of our team in regards to the team chemistry they have and how hard we played. And, everybody's still going through, it's only not even quite mid-season yet. And everybody's still going through growing pains with trying to develop their team roles and their combinations of players at certain times during certain games to be successful. When Zach gets in foul trouble like he did on Tuesday night and he has to sit out, a few more minutes than what he normally does, that puts a little bit more strain on the guys coming off the bench and more pressure. And we turned the ball over quite a bit on Tuesday night, which is kind of unusual. When we're at our best when Braden is not dribbling the ball for half the shot clock. We're at our best when we move the ball, very quickly and get our rotations all matched up for Zach to roll to the basket and get posted up inside and then get the ball to him. And then if they double and triple team, then we've got guys that are, good shooters and we shoot a pretty good. As a matter of fact, I think before Tuesday night, I think we were the top rated 3-point shooting team in the Big Ten at about 41%, if I'm right, Malin. So, we can knock them down as Gillis did, there for a while. But unfortunately, we didn't have enough players hitting enough of them to weather the storm because our defense broke down on many occasions, which, you go through games like that. But unfortunately, Nebraska was hitting everything they threw up. And Tamanaka was unreal like he always is. Just, it doesn't even look like he can get a shot off over the defender and the kid pulls up and makes the shot. It's hard to defend. And but yeah, I love their composure in most games. Tuesday night was one game this year that I thought maybe we kind of got it in our head that we were beat before the end of the game. Usually we just fight back and take control of the game again. And it just didn't happen. So that happens. But this team's going to be fine. I mean, they've only lost 2 games. Sometimes when you get beat, it makes you work harder. It gets you more composed, gets you more prepared for the next games that you're going to be able to play. And since you have a few losses going into the tournament, that gives you more motivation to do your job and show people that you are the best team in the country. And I think if we're going to win a national championship, I think this is the team that can do it.
Mike, anything to add to that, or what will you add to that?
You know what? Was Kaufman Wren, was he sick?
Not to my knowledge. I just think that they didn't he went for literally zeros across. Now, he had 5 rebounds or something like that, but
yeah,
zeros across the board.
Because he had his man left him. I mean, he's coming off the best game he's had, like that I can remember. And he made a 3, made shots. They left him, and he had 2 or 3 times he caught the ball inside the free throw line and didn't even look to shoot it.
Yeah.
And talking to different coach and some of the players, like he's improved so much. And I just felt like, I don't know what happened to him in that game because he played only 15 minutes and he had some rebounds, but I mean, he didn't get a shot attempt. He didn't get a shot. He didn't get a shot.
Yeah.
And I agree with Stick in that what we didn't get any fast break baskets because they didn't miss any shots.
Right.
I mean, they didn't. And I mean, every time when we started that second half and we got right there, I said, well, we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And I'm darned if it didn't go to 10 points, but they made shots that you try to make if you're playing horse. And it's like, this is the last left. I'm playing Stick. And okay, Stick, and you got to shoot this shot. When the ball hits your hand, you got 1 second to shoot it because that's how quick that guy. And you know what? You watch, I guarantee you his next game, he'll be 1 for 9 or something. Balls will be going everywhere. But I think that this team we can't get wrapped up with losing a game because there's nobody left that's undefeated already.
Right.
And this past week, I mean, 4 of the top 5 teams got beat, and some of them got beat at home. And I mean, Marquette gets beat by Butler. Marquette was like 2 for 25 from the 3.
Right.
Miami gets beat by Louisville, and Louisville is arguably, the worst team in the ACC, and they go in and score 90 some and beat them 15 or 20. So because of the 3-point line and the portal, I think it's just changed the parity. There's a lot of good teams and a lot of good players.
Yeah, that is a true statement, and
I agree.
I think that that's what's going to make it interesting down the stretch. And well, we will look forward to both of you guys and your teammates. And what will be a special presentation in Mackey Arena on Saturday. I think they're going to do something at halftime, I presume, and when you guys will be honored. And I think Matt Painter did you guys some justice, because that's one thing I love about Matt Painter is his ability to understand history and understand perspective of, like you guys have talked about, 1974 NIT championship is not the same as the 2023 NIT championship. It was a big deal, and 10,000 fans greeted you guys when you came home, and it's worthy of a banner in Mackey Arena. I think that's what's really cool, is that is there, and you'll get your just desserts. And fans like myself, when I'm a little younger than you guys, you were
I lost you. Hello,
I'm a little younger, but you guys were absolutely fun to watch. And I didn't know all the stuff. I didn't know all the stuff you guys did off the court, because I was too young and naive. But I did appreciate.
That's good.
Appreciate you guys being as good as you were. So
appreciate it.
Safe travels to West Lafayette. Jerry doesn't have quite as far to go as Mike does, but you guys will get here, and you'll be greeted with some really wonderfully cool temperatures, which makes Lafayette the place to be in the wintertime. We all know that. So we'll be back in a couple minutes, though, for our next segment. Do you want a last word? Go ahead, Mike.
No. Is Gerald Thomas, because as you mentioned, he's gone through some incredibly tough health situations. Is he going to be able to go to the game? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think he's working on that as best he can. I'm not certain that'll be the case, because Gerald lives in West Lafayette, less than half a mile from Mackey Arena to be exact. Of course, the longtime West Lafayette City Councilman as well has gone through some health issues and had some recent surgery. But I've always appreciated the fact that even on our Monday night podcast, you guys did a lot to honor what a great guy Gerald is, first and foremost. And as a true freshman, came in and really helped make a couple big free throws, I think, in the Utah game and a game in Jacksonville, too. Then in the semifinals, it was dicey for the half. You guys were tied at the half in that game, and he came in and did the job. So
I missed a free throw. I missed a big free throw in the championship game, and Gerald stepped in and tipped it back.
That's right.
And I ended up getting it and didn't have anything to do with it, so I threw it up there and it went in. So, I mean, it was
Gerald gets an assist for that.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. No, he was one of the best teammates you could have. Just a good heart and a good guy.
Great soul. All right, we'll be back in a couple of minutes for our next segment on Gold and Black Live, and stay tuned, as they say. We appreciate all of you, and Mike and Jerry, so much for your time. Always fun talking to you guys.
Thanks, Alan.
This weekend, Stick. We'll see you this weekend, brother.
Yeah, brother. I'm looking forward to it.